You're back tonight here on In Focus. The shocking crime against the film crew by illegal miners in Krugersdorp has drawn the focus on the phenomenon of abandoned mines in South Africa. Extensive research has pointed out that the harm they cause extends far beyond the safety of surrounding communities, but also exposes mining waste whose impact may be rated as second only to global warming and extreme ozone depletion. Joining us now on the environmental impact of abandoned mines is Environmentalist Mariette Liefferink, who has done extensive research on mining's environmental impact in Gauteng. Mariette, good evening. Good to have you with us this evening here on In Focus. Mariette, not only are we talking about the safety issues around the community, but there's great impact on the environment itself. What are the problems that are related to mining waste when it comes to mines that are left unrehabilitated?
Yes, first of all, I want to mention where the unfortunate and very tragic rape of the 6 women took place is within the abandoned area of the liquidated mining company Mintails operations. Mintails was an Australian-listed mining company, but when Mintails, that is the parent company, Mintails Limited, experienced financial difficulties, it then spun off or divested itself from all its South African subsidiaries. That then resulted in 3 of the subsidiaries applying for liquidation, and these subsidiaries were liquidated. With the liquidation, it left in its wake unrehabilitated tailing storage facilities or mine dumps. It left in its wake unrehabilitated footprints of reclaimed tailing storage facilities. It also left in its wake toxic and radioactive dams and contaminated wetlands. Because there was no access control, no management measures, no fences, no warning signs after the liquidation, it then, of course, contributed to unlawful mining activities or illegal mining activities. Now, with regards to illegal mining activities, the gold ore, that is where Mintails mined, contains not only sulfuric acid, that is spiritic material, which causes acid mine drainage, but it also co-occurs with uranium. Uranium is both radioactive and it is also toxic, so it results in both toxic impacts and radioactive impacts. So the artisanal miners, or we would rather refer to or we want to differentiate between artisanal miners and illegal miners. So the illegal miners within the West Rand, when they mine, there is, of course, the risks now with regards to the contamination as a result of radioactivity and toxic metals. These metals are in elevated concentrations, and it's a wide spectrum of metals. Yeah. These metals are metals, for example, like cadmium, cobalt, copper, zinc, arsenic, which is a metalloid, and then, of course, uranium and its radioactive progeny. The illegal miners are not governed, or they are not compliant with environmental legislation, so it results in the dispersal of this radioactive and toxic material within the environment.
What does radioactive substance do in an environment when it's released like that?
Yes, uranium is low in radioactivity, but it has an extremely long life as a radioactive element. So that results in risks to communities for geological ages, that is millions of years, not just biological years. And the radioactivity aspect of uranium can result in transgenerational impacts. It can result in endocrine disrupting compounds because it mimics estrogen, so it can result in deformities. It affects the DNA. The chemical toxicity of uranium can result in nephrotoxicity, that is chronic kidney disease or kidney failure. It can also result, of course, in contamination of our water resources. That is both the water as well as the sediment, because the heavy metals, that is uranium, is the heaviest metal within the metal group that then also precipitates in the sediment. So there is long-term risks both to the health and of communities as well as to the environmental health.
How vulnerable is our water waste management treatment plants to this toxic elements that come from these mines?
At the moment, there is a short-term treatment that has been established in 2012 within the West Rand. Then it was also established, if I can just get my figures correct, I think it was established in 2016 in the Eastern Basin, that is within the Nigel Springs area, and in 2014 in the Central Basin. The short-term treatment of the acid mine drainage, because acid mine drainage is as a consequence of gold mining. The acid mine drainage contains a wide spectrum of metals, including radioactive metals, that is uranium and its radioactive progeny. So the short-term treatment at the moment is treating the water by means of neutralization. So it adjusts the pH, that is the acidity is then well adjusted to alkalinity. And then the metals in the acid mine water precipitates. The metals do not disappear. They simply it translates into a different oxidization state from being soluble into solid, so they do not disappear, and they can again be remobilized. So this is the current short-term treatment by government of the acid mine drainage within the mining companies. However, most of the wetlands and also the rivulets and also the rivers downstream of these mining activities still contain elevated levels of metals. In fact, one of these rivulets, it's referred to as the Wonderfonteinspruit catchment area, as well as the Tweelopiespruit, it has been found by an overwhelming body of evidence that it contains elevated levels of cadmium, cobalt, copper, zinc, and arsenic, and that these metals are absorbed in the sediment of these rivulets and wetlands, but that they can again be remobilized by plausible environmental conditions. Now, we must just remember that illegal mining also then contributes significantly to the remobilization of these metals into our water systems or into our rivers.
So what was Mintails supposed to have done? Or, of course, they were liquidated, they left. What was government then, who were left with the responsibility of these mines, supposed to have done to ensure that we rid the mines of these toxic and radioactive elements?
Yes, that is a very, very relevant question, and I was very desirous to answer that question. There was a parliamentary portfolio investigation conducted. The Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Mineral and Resources did an oversight visit in November 2018 of Mintails operations, and then they released a report which was tabled at Parliament, and I wish to read to you perhaps just one or two of the findings of this report.
Yes, please.
The first, I beg your pardon?
I'm saying yes, please. Please do.
Thank you. It stated that the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy has failed to implement effectively and carry out the intentions of Parliament to ensure that mines rehabilitate the damage that they caused. They found that the damage, the financial damage, which the Mintails group of companies caused within the West Rand, and that was where the 8 girls were or the 8 young women were raped. It was on Mintails property. It was on Mining Road 206, on sand dump, the North Sand Dumps within Krugersdorp. and they failed to rehabilitate the damage. And not only that, Mintails has an environmental liability, an unfunded environmental liability of 460 million rand. Those liabilities are now being carried by communities and by the state. It also found, that is now the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee, that the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy allowed Mintails to operate between 2012 and 2018, despite the fact that the department had never approved the environmental plans of the mine and had never issued the company with a mining right under the law. So they were allowed to operate unlawfully, and then when they were liquidated, 3 of the subsidiaries of the Mintails Group were liquidated, and when they were liquidated, the liquidators failed to provide funding for the security services. And as a result, it resulted in the looting of all of Mintails' infrastructure, 3 billion rand of gold treatment plants. It also resulted in all these tailing storage facilities having no access control, no warning signs, no fences, with radioactive and toxic dams.
So, Mariette, what you're saying to us is that since the release of that report, Parliament, including the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, has been aware of the work that has not been done on this Mintails property and the danger that it poses, and it's been left to stay that way right up until this tragedy has occurred.
That is quite correct. And not only were they made aware by the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee, they were also made aware by our organisation, my organisation is assisted by the Legal Resource Centre, because we are currently in litigation where we have prayed to the court in order to order the Department of Mineral Resources Minister, the Director General, the Department of Water and Sanitation, the National Nuclear Regulator, to order the Mintails group of companies to rehabilitate the area, to make safe the area, and also to provide access control. I also just want to refer back again to the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee's findings and recommendations to Parliament. They also stated that they should hold the, I'll just get it here, that the DMRE must report to the committee in Parliament on what efforts they have made to hold the directors and shareholders of Mintails liable for the environmental liabilities, and by extension also what has happened now to these 8 women that have been raped. And since
to your knowledge, the Mintails Group still operating in South Africa or maybe anywhere else in the world?
They are still operating in Australia. What happened is when their subsidiaries in South Africa liquidated, they then delisted from the Australian Stock Exchange. They changed their name from Mintails Limited to Orminex in order to obfuscate and also to avoid their environmental liabilities in South Africa. This is all I just want to say, that the current situation in South Africa is that when a mining company liquidates, it ceases to exist as a legal person, and therefore no liabilities can now be enforced against a company that has been liquidated, because it is no longer a legal entity. And that was one of the recommendations of the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee, that this gap between the Companies Act, the Insolvency Act, and the Mineral and Petroleum Resources Development Act must be addressed. And regrettably, I have to inform you now that I have no knowledge that all these recommendations of the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee have been implemented or complied with.
Mariette, appreciate your time and bringing this to light to us this evening. and certainly something that we need to follow up on. But as far as your law action suit is concerned, are you saying then you want this new company that used to be Mentels to come back and be held accountable for the rehabilitation of that mine?
Yes, we are praying to the court that the responsible and relevant organs of state must hold the directors of Mentels responsible for the environmental degradation and pollution that they have caused, and for their failure in duty of care. All
right. Mariette, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on. That's Environmentalist Mariette Liefferink there, helping us.